It must be Wednesday night if you seeing me. It's the sexiest host on internet TV. I'm Kyrie Terrell. I'm down here at the Philly Inquirer building with some special guests. I'm gonna introduce you to them in a minute, but we got some things to talk about on 2-1 Live. Tonight's topic is what's wrong in Philly and how do we fix it? So we're gonna get into some things. But first, happy birthday to Gritty. Did y'all know yesterday was Gritty's birthday? Ernest, you a Gritty fan?
Unfortunately so.
Unfortunately. You like, so Jenice, Philly fanatic or Gritty, which one?
Gritty all the way. Oh. Fanatic is old news. Gritty is new.
That's
yeah.
Right. I guess y'all heard it. Gritty's the new hero in town, but we got an even newer hero in town. If either of y'all seen Hakeem Laws, who saved some babies, caught some babies from a burning building, and then had the wherewithal to say, not like Aguilar. Y'all see this story?
I mean, I saw it, I'm really, a fan, and I'm really happy that, an everyday person gets to have these moments, because too often, especially with black men, we see them in a negative light in the media, and so for someone to have that kind of fun and be able to, be looked at as a hero, I think is a good thing.
Right.
I loved it too. You know who he reminded me of? Jeremiah. Remember the guy who scaled up the burning building 19 stories to get to his mama?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember him. And Nelson Aguilar, he was a true, what you call it, a class.
Sport,
he showed some class and invited him to the game on the next home game, him and his family. So Hakeem, go enjoy the game. We got to get him on Hit 'em High, y'all. Yeah. New Mattel, or new Barbie line from Mattel, gender non-conforming dolls. So they don't have broad shoulders like Ken, they don't have breasts like Barbie. How y'all feel about this? Is we doing too much of these toys the kids will be playing with? What's going on?
It's about time. It's about time. People need to see themselves, and I think, it's an opportunity to have really good conversations about gender at a young age rather than waiting until you're older and really don't know how to act.
And here's something else. It's good for kids who, might not be gender nonconforming to have, a doll like that. So it won't be totally new to them the first time they meet somebody. So I think it's fantastic. And hooray, hooray, hooray for Mattel.
Oh, there it is. Mattel is doing new things. Speaking of somebody else that's doing good things, is Lisa Ray has been crowned the Queen of Ghana for her humanitarian work. And Lisa Ray was in the news recently with Nikki Murphy, when Nikki Murphy went ahead and kissed Antoine Fuqua in Italy. Antoine's married. Lisa Ray's also married, and Nicole Murphy was rumored to, or what have you, to be doing some things with her husband, but she says it was an accident. You guys believe in this accidental adultery?
You can't be accidentally messing with someone's husband.
I accidentally kissed him. So, yeah, girl, get out of here.
What would you do, Jenice, if she accidentally kissed your husband?
I'd accidentally chase her all the way back to Hollywood.
That's right.
Can I come join you?
Yeah.
You don't mind if I just hop right in? How we doing?
Fine, how are you?
Y'all good?
Yeah.
I had to get over there from the monologue. But anyway, it's a pleasure to have y'all in the building with us on 2-1 Live, man.
Thank you.
Some good friends that I go back with. I'm going to introduce the lady to my left, Jenice Armstrong. Y'all know Jenice Armstrong, but Jenice, tell them who you are and what you do.
My name's Jenice Armstrong. I'm an Inquirer columnist. My columns appear in the Inquirer, the Daily News, and on Inquirer.com.
Yes, indeed. And then I got my guy, Ernest Owens, in the building, the always controversial. Tell them who you are, what you do.
My name's Ernest Owens. I'm an award-winning journalist and conversation starter in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I'm also the CEO of Ernest Me Empire LLC.
There it is. And Ernest also has a line of V-necks coming out soon. Every time I see Ernest, he got a little extra chest out. So he needs to start a V-neck line. But we got some things going on, man. It's what's wrong with Philly and how do we fix some of those things. So we're gonna give our honest opinions on some of the things that's going on and how we think they can be fixed. You guys submitted some topics and we got some things to go through. So the first one that we're gonna talk about, the recent resignation of the Philadelphia Police Commissioner. Jenice, you had the pleasure of writing anything about that?
Oh yes, oh yes, that was a real stunner. Who saw that coming?
I
Nobody.
did.
Oh, you did not.
I did.
How did you see that coming?
I mean, he was gonna go some kind of way. I mean, let's be real here. Like, who did not think that with all the stuff that was going on with the cops, that someone was gonna fall? And normally it's a brother that falls. So to see him be the one to take the fall, even though there was a lot of other people in the police department doing some really sketchy things, I mean, are we surprised? I mean, the way that black politicians fall in Philadelphia is just like those scary movies where the first person who dies in the scary movie is a black person. So it's the same way with politicians. They fall just like
Do you consider it a fall? Do you consider it a fall because he resigned? Was he not getting ahead of it?
I mean,
you think it was a forced resignation? Talk to me.
It is a forced resignation. You think
Okay.
he chose to leave? I mean, how do you go from the mayor telling you you're the best person, you know, you're the best person, and then the next
best
week,
commissioner in
best
America.
commissioner in America, to then being a no longer commissioner in America?
So what happened, Jenice? Why did this come about?
Well, you know about the lawsuit
He
and the
couldn't keep his pants
allegations and the allegations that he did not do what he was supposed to do, and that it had something to do with the fact that he might, according to this lawsuit, he had a relationship with one of his underlings, which is absolutely forbidden. It was before he was police commissioner. Now, he has not commented on that.
No.
But these are allegations in the lawsuit, and when it came out, he resigned shortly after. My understanding is that Mayor Kinney didn't want him to leave, but he was insistent on going, and he walked out. And I frankly was sorry to see him go. I really was. But you know how much he gets in his pension? $13,000 a month.
And he was also the highest paid city employee, one of the highest paid city
Now
employees.
listen, I'm gonna tell you the truth. If all this stress and all this sketch is coming down on me, and I'm as old as Commissioner Ross was, or is, and I'm getting 13 grand in my pension, that might not be a fall, Ernest Owens. That might be a choice.
No, I don't.
Let me
think
get
so.
out the way before something happened and I don't get a pension.
Okay, let's keep it real. $13,000 sounds like a lot of money, but if you got to split it in half, it ain't but so much.
$13,000
It's a
a
lot
month?
for you not
Divide
doing
it
nothing.
in half.
Oh, I don't think that's a lot of money for someone that, do the work. I mean, I don't think it was about pensions. I think at the end of the day, he did not want the public scrutiny that he was going to get. I think this was an abrupt departure. I think that he felt the pressure. I think that he had to leave before more stuff came out, because more things was coming out. And I think that at the end of the day, this was the smoke, and he said, oh, I see the fire, let me duck. And he said, let me go ahead and resign before it's too late. And now that lawsuit that's happening with the new commissioner, look what's happened to her. She need to resign too. She need to resign too.
Now,
Oh my gosh.
It also happened right after the active shooter situation in North Philly. So a lot of people were kind of pointing toward some of that, what the cops were under.
I think it's apples and oranges. It's
It had
apples and
nothing
oranges.
to do with
But
the other.
Ernest brought up a really good point about the acting police commissioner, Christine Coulter.
Right.
She's only been in office a couple of weeks.
Or
She's-
Miss Trunchable, as we
What you
call her
call
on
her?
Twitter. Miss
Oh,
Trunchable.
from Matilda?
Yes, Miss Trunchable.
Ooh.
Sending people in the choking.
Go ahead,
Well,
Jenice.
she's had her own controversy already, and you probably read
I'm
about
not
it.
familiar. Talk to me. What
Oh my
happened?
gosh! Shortly after she gets in office, the Inquirer receives a photo of her wearing a white T-shirt that says LAPD, where we treat you like a king. And she's wearing this T-shirt.
The context has to be there. She wore it in the early 90s when the Rodney King beatdown actually happened. So it's not like this was a vintage T-shirt that she found at Hot Topic or some old store. This was a situation where she was wearing it when the block was hot, and she knew what she was doing, and she could not have known what
Was
she
she
was
a cop
doing.
at the time?
Yes,
She
she
was.
was.
When she wore it?
And,
was.
here's what it was. People make mistakes. I mean, who hasn't done something from 20 years ago that they might not be 100% pleased with? But
Ernest don't
my
like that.
problem, I can understand that, because
What do you
I
mean by
don't
mistake?
wear racist
But hold on,
T-shirts even 20
let's
years
be clear.
ago.
Let's be different between a mistake and doing something that was just plain
I'm
fucked
gonna give her,
up.
it is fucked up. That's
Yeah.
true. But I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt here. And this is my complaint that I wrote about in my column, was that how she handled it. I mean, she was presented with it, instead of falling on her sword, making an apology, saying I was ignorant, I was wrong, I apologize to the city of Philadelphia, the people in LA, Rodney King's relatives. What did she do? She's like, is that the king that they were talking about? I didn't really.
Which
she
is
played it off.
why I won't call it a
And
mistake.
that's the problem I have
no,
with
but
it.
that's
It
why
wasn't
you-
from 20 years ago. It's from what she did in August.
But that's why you
my
can't.
problem.
But that's why you can't call it a mistake, because she's not acknowledging it as such. That's why I won't call it a mistake, because when you acknowledge a mistake, you have guilt. You say you're sorry. You give an apology.
Yes.
You do it
Yeah.
before 10 days. I mean, she was late. with her apology.
I
And she
gotta
only
There was
side
said it
like
with
because of
dead
Ernest
her.
on that
silence.
one.
It
That's-
was
Yeah.
dead silence
It
for a
was
long
so
time.
that means
Poor
that
handling.
so we can't, as black people, I think, we do this thing where we become apologists for some people or try to give them extended grace that they would never give us. Because if you wore a t-shirt that said Black Lives Matter, or you said fuck the police, or some shirt like that, right? They would never give you that's a mistake, or that's something confusing, or give you the benefit of the doubt. No, they would be ready to send you to the shoki, which is what Miss Trunchbull was doing when she was wearing that t-shirt.
The fact that she didn't acknowledge it, because even though it's 20 years ago,
right.
As soon as you say, well, we treat you like a king, in my mind, and I didn't know the story.
Right.
But I said, I got the pun immediately.
Everybody got the pun. She knew.
So
Right.
you can't, she knew what she was doing.
Right.
She's lying.
Right.
And that lie makes it 10 times.
There you go.
But she
Not a
could
mistake.
have. She could have finessed this if she had only owned it and
Owned
lived
it
up
and
to
apologized.
it. Lived
But
up
she
to
wasn't
it.
going to, because you have to understand the police state, and you have to understand the culture that these cops have. She's not going to acknowledge she did something wrong, because then she will indict every single officer that also wore that shirt. And there's probably several other people who have worn shirts like that. So she's not going to want to oust herself. See, the thing that I tell people about police, and this is why the way I feel about them, is because every time, black people, there's something that happens in the community, we all got to double down and unite to condemn that person. When a bad cop acts up, you don't see the good cops say anything. So where are all the good police officers in Philly that was out there saying, you know what, she should have not done that? Where are those people at?
You know what? I've heard from some, and some of them
On the
are
low,
talking.
they be on a DL with it. They be, shh, don't tell nobody.
Well, they got-
would know
Where-
about him
come
being
out,
on
come
the
out,
DL
wherever
too.
you are.
it's kind of dangerous to come across that blue line, sometimes.
It
Right,
is.
and that's why I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt, because they wouldn't do the same for us, which is proving the point that I was making earlier.
And that's not
They won't
just
do it
Philly.
for
That's
us.
not just a Philly problem. That's a national
Clearly it's a
problem.
LA
because
problem.
I don't think I don't understand this whole, like you said, there has to be good cops that are good cops against bad cops.
There's no good cops in a racist
That has
system.
to happen. That has to happen. If that doesn't happen, that is one of the reasons why people hate cops, right? If we have a show of good cops saying, no, that person, that was wrong, I don't stand for that cop, right? Now you can start to change the narrative on police as a whole. But I think Ernest hit the nail on the head. When something happens with a bad cop, you don't see good cops coming out publicly against them.
You want to know a joke, or I don't know if it's a joke, but a parody about this is that, when you see a good cop speak up? When they leave the force.
Oh.
He's not
Well,
wrong
come on.
though, Jenice.
I don't know. I have some great friends who are cops, and some people who are
And I do too.
and some people whose work I've admired for years.
Where they
are
at
police
speaking on
officers.
this?
Anyway, you ask them.
That's what
I'm trying to
they
find
do.
these good cops to speak up.
So something else that's going on in Philadelphia right now that I'm sure if we haven't been affected by, we've at least seen it.
Yeah.
The My New Philly studio is located at D and Allegheny. We're very close to Kensington and Allegheny, and there's tons of little blocks around there that are really like crippled by the heroin and opioid epidemic. This is a problem it's not just a Philly problem again, but it is definitely something that is affecting Philadelphia. I'll go first and give my take on it because we're right there, and I know this has been spoken about in other forums. I'm at a very hard crossroad of a choice to make about how I feel about the heroin and opioid epidemic. And the main reason is because a lot of these people choose to put themselves in this situation. And you may say, well, they're addicted and it's a choice and this and that. But one thing about the heroin and the opioid epidemic is you have these tent cities, you have these villages, you have these congregations of people that seem to want to get together to do this behavior. But then we have people treating them as if they're homeless. Right? And I don't know about y'all, but I never seen a homeless person that owned like a camping tent with a dresser inside of it and all. And I'm not being funny, but this is the stuff that you see on Kensington and Allegheny. So you have people there that are still connected to family and relatives and people with money. And where I'm going is unlike the crack epidemic, right? And these people are still being supported during this addiction. So how do you reverse this process if you have not only family members coming down to make sure Sarah's tent is good and she has clothes and food and but now you also have a system that's free needles, free food, free this for these people that are addicted. How do you get out of it during the crack epidemic? And we can talk about whether it's because this is a maybe mostly white problem, but during the crack epidemic, people was on their own. People was, you
people
on crack.
People were being locked up.
People getting locked up. People weren't getting the government support and the community support that these people are getting in the heroin epidemic. That's like, and my mother was crack addicted, so I'm not coming from a place of someone who doesn't understand, right? But I'm coming from a place of, I just don't know if we are fueling this fire with gasoline or are we really looking to put water on it? It seems like we're helping them be addicts.
Well, what I would say, I think, that's a lot. But I think where I'm coming from with this, and what I think the issue is that what we have to understand is that the heroin epidemic and opioid epidemic that's happening in Philadelphia, in other words, they largely actually impact Black and brown people, more so than what we think, because unfortunately the narrative has put a white face at it, but it's actually impacting Black and brown people, and we have to be clear that it's not just needle usage. So what happens is that needle usage typically is being attached to white people who are using the drug. But opioids is in a form of other types of ways to take the drug. It can be through pills, it can be through so many other things. And that is crossing over different racial lines that isn't just white. What I think the issue is here, and what I hear from you and I hear from other people that make those types of arguments, including Solomon Jones, is I understand where the anger and frustration is. But there's two things that we have to recognize, is that if you have any group of people that are struggling with any type of addiction or any type of drug usage that are just left dead, that's going to really impact the city cost-wise. It's going to impact communities. It's going to impact us worse. So something does need to happen. I think our argument that some people have made where it's like, just turn a blind eye this way, like they did it to us in the crack epidemic, is not going to solve the issue now, because it's going to also impact Black and brown people who are also struggling with those drugs as well. So there's no way you can racialize the segregation, like, okay, this is only, we'll help Black people that struggle with drugs, but we'll just exclude white people from it. And we know it's messed up. But what I would also argue too, and what I would say to the city, is that while I do believe that we need to put funding towards this, we also need to keep that same energy for other community issues and renewal. It really annoys me and pisses me off that the city has decided to put a lot of money in Kensington and areas like that now that we've seen these issues of people struggling with addiction in those neighborhoods. But before we saw that, these neighborhoods were still messed up. They were still abandoned. They were still, struggling. They still had these problems. And I just hate that the only time the city feels like they need to respond to something is when there has to be an epidemic of sorts. It can happen to any neighborhood in West Philly, North Philly, or in other parts of Philadelphia that isn't happening now. And like, for example, I live in Cedar Park, but when I go out to 52nd Street, I see people selling drugs there on the corner and doing all kind of things over there. I'm seeing the poverty, I'm seeing places getting knocked out, gentrification, all that stuff happening. And it's like, okay, does it have to be a bunch of shootings in the area before the city decides to put money? So what I think is that I understand your frustration. I just think that we just need to understand that we don't want to abandon funding and resources to help people that struggle with addiction, but we also should tell the city to keep that same energy fiscally across the board.
And let me, before you jump in real quick, Jenice, let me be clear. We can't go back. I know that. So I'm not one of these folks that's sitting here like, oh, but y'all ain't do that when people was on crack. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm simply saying why I started with I'm in between, because I don't know the answer. But I know that what I see being done, even toward your point, that now that it's an issue, there's money and resources coming in. I just don't know if that's the fix. I don't know what side I'm on.
Right. Yes, and here's, this is the issue that I'm bouncing back and forth across, is from one day to the next, is the issue of safe injection sites.
Right.
I'm in favor of being compassionate. I want to always err on the side of being compassionate and helping people and meeting people where they are.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I don't believe in ignoring the residents. If the residents in Harrow's Gate or whatever that neighborhood is, and in Kensington do not want safe injection sites in their neighborhood, I think they have the right to say that they don't want it there. move it elsewhere.
But we also got to recognize why they don't want it there, because they already have a neighborhood that's already been crippled with other issues, poverty, and other problems. And so if you put an injection site in an area that's already dealing with problems,
makes it a bigger
it's
hub.
going to make it worse. Why won't you put it in Rittenhouse? Why won't you put it in Old City?
You know
why
why.
won't you put it in Northern Liberties? I mean, they're coming from those areas to get over there to get the drugs.
Now,
They don't even, the people that's using are not local users. Like, let's be very clear, they're not local users.
Yes. So, we should also probably tell people a little bit about what it's like, because a lot of people never get over there. I know that's not an area I try to go very often. And the last time I went, it was like a zombie apocalypse. I mean, I've been there, but not so, with bodies laying out.
Yeah, if you're riding down Allegheny Avenue or any of those side streets, even broad daylight in the morning, it could be 6 a.m., it could be 7 a.m., obviously it can be wee hours in the morning. But you're going to see, if you just open your eyes and look down any of those blocks, you're going to see people using drugs. You're going to see people selling drugs. You're going to see people, leaned over, hunched over, in a heroin binge. You're going to see this. And I'm not saying it to advertise it and tell people to go down there and do it. But what I am saying is, there's been other epidemics.
Yeah.
Even when crack was an epidemic, I don't remember seeing anyone.
I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Smoking crack, but this is like I've seen people pull their pants down, put a needle in their pants on Allegheny Avenue.
Okay, I don't always go over there, but I used to follow this website, Kensington Beach, and they'd show videos of what was going on. That was taken down a couple of weeks ago.
Why? Who took it down?
Instagram took it down. Kensington Beach. I think he was doing a really good job exposing people to what's going on. Yeah, there were privacy issues and things like that. Plenty of them.
Yeah.
But for people who don't get there, it was a constant reminder of what is going on. I remember one day they were showing a girl injecting a guy in his neck, and it's not like here or there, it's everywhere.
Right, you see all of that. And I'm gonna tell you right now, one of the things I think Jenice raised a good point, I'm against injection houses. That's not the right side of the problem for me.
But where do you think they're gonna go?
What we need to be doing is finding ways to get them off of the drug, not making it more comfortable for you to use the drug, and especially not where the streets are the way they are. Now you're putting places in this place where some residents do just live. They're not a part of that issue or that problem. And now you're going to say, I'm going to put a place where people are allowed to use drugs feet away from where my children walk to school at. That's not a good idea to me.
I hear you. But here's what they really plan to do inside these places. It's like, come on in, we'll give you some clean works, and then they're going to try to coax people to go into rehab. So it's like an entry point. Hey, sit down, relax.
It's not
come in here and get high.
It's not the crack house, trap house that you used to in the early days.
But it's really resources.
I get the frustration, but again, it's really a different. Again, I think that there's a level of historical trauma that people are facing with this, right? Where there are people who are like, I'm still upset that this was not provided to my family, and that's rightful rage. You're completely 100% fair to have that. I do struggle with that frustration in so many different ways for so many different issues, but there has to be a level of compassion to understand that we got to move forward. We have to find more nuanced ways to do it, because if we don't, what's the answer, right? Just let them just die. Because that's really what I'm asking you. What do you want? You just want them just dying?
And they're dying. What is it about?
They're dying, right? You just want to keep dying. It's the biggest
in Philadelphia last year, roughly 1,000.
Fastest killer of death for most adults.
All right, so we got to move on out of that, but definitely chime in. Let us know your comments and your questions, and if there's anything that you want us to touch on that's wrong in Philadelphia, and some ideas on how to fix it. Right now, though, I want to tell you guys about another live show that we have that goes live every Monday, but this Friday we'll be going live after the Eagles game on Thursday night. It's called Hit 'em High with Seth Joyner. We also have Scott Seidenberg and Everett Terry hosting that show right down at Parks Casino every Monday at noon. You can check us out, and you can check us out this Friday. I believe we're going live at 9, right? 9 a.m. this Friday?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you can check us out. It's all Eagles all the time, and it's hosted by the legendary Seth Joyner, one of the Eagle Hall of Famers. He's not National Football Hall of Fame, but he's definitely an Eagle Hall of Famer. So other things that's going on, what's wrong with Philly. So this was your topic.
Yes.
This is what Ernest said he wanted to speak to.
Yeah.
And that's nepotism within city government. in city politics, and he points to that being one of the reasons why things don't change in this city. So I'm gonna let you lead off with this topic, Ernest Owens. What's going on in the city government?
I mean, you know, when you look at a lot of issues that's happening in politics right now, we have an election coming up. I know it's kind of boring this year because we all know that most of the Democrats are going to get their seats. All the energy was in the spring with the primaries, so people were really excited about that. But one of the things that I consistently have seen, and what I look at with a lot of these people getting elected, is that either they're the cousin, the sister, the brother, the chief of staff of somebody who's leaving that's there. And there's no shade to some of these elected officials, because some of them I do like. Like I do like Catherine Gilmore Richardson. I think she's going to be great. But there are a couple other people who I don't think are all that.
Is she tied to someone else?
Yes, she was the chief of staff for Blondell Reynolds Brown,
okay,
who is retiring, or she doesn't use the word retiring. She's transitioning to another career, but it will not be at City Hall.
Okay.
So I like people like, you know, Catherine, but I think there are other people who get into office and it's the same system. They run with the family name, they run with other people they know, and they want to consistently keep doing that. And as a result, our political system is not even a democracy really much anymore. It becomes a good old boys circle, or a spoils as you may. And we really see that heavy in Philly, which is why I was really excited when Janie Blackwell was no longer in office, because her husband before her was in the seat. They've had the seat for at least 45 years. It would have been this year. 45 years would have been them. And Jamie Gutierrez, who does not have a family relation or anything like that in that seat, is the first person in nearly 45 years to get it.
So let's talk about what you believe the difference would be in city government if not for some of these seats being held by either similar people, or in the Blackwell's circumstance, family.
Right. I think for one, people won't feel like they have to owe people favors. If you recognize the current political structure in Philly, it's somebody big has a young bull or whatever they have, they're grooming, then that person leaves, that person runs for office, they run that person, and then that person has to pay the debt of whatever that person had incurred in political capital. Then that person has to then pay their respects, and they become a puppet. So when you look at, for example, in the Northwest of Philadelphia, you see people like Miriam Tasco, who was in city council for a long time. She wanted Sherelle Parker, who was a state rep, to have her seat when she flipped out. When she left, Sherelle Parker got the seat. They then tried to run someone else that Miriam Tasco wanted for that seat, and a man named Chris Rabb, who did not have any personal connections or ties to that dynasty that was in the Northwest, ran, crowdsourced money, and kept whooping their ass and getting those seats. And 2 terms in, he keeps, and they keep throwing someone to go against him, and he keeps winning, and everyone knows it.
Do you feel like he's doing a better job than that?
He's doing a better job, okay. I think, and I think Sherelle Parker is a very charismatic politician. I will not say that they're not doing any good work. They're very charismatic, lovely gowns, beautiful gowns. But I would just say that I think that people like Chris Rabb, they're speaking truth to power, they're making radical decisions, they're endorsing candidates that are for the city council that are not even Democrats, because they recognize that if we're really trying to really serve the people in Philadelphia, we can't keep kissing the ring every day.
So Jenice, is this a problem?
He's 100% correct about this.
Talk to me.
You know, people wonder sometimes why things don't change in Philly.
Right.
Things aren't going to change in Philly because, you know, this is because of just what you delineated.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really for, I'm not for people getting these council seats and holding them for decades and decades and decades. I mean,
There's no term limits.
There's no term
limits. No, there's no limits, no guidance.
Okay.
I think it should be like mayor.
Right.
You know, after you've had 2 terms, move it, keep it moving.
Right.
Bring in new blood, give other
Right.
people opportunities. I mean, you should be able to accomplish what you're going to accomplish in that time. And if you haven't, get out.
You gotta go.
I want to do this.
This should not be a career.
Real quick.
Being on city council should not be your career.
Because
That's right.
the backside of our topic is, and how do we fix it, right? So real quick, I'm gonna rewind the show a little bit. I'm gonna go back to when we talked about the police commissioner.
Right.
All right. Really quick, how do we fix that police commissioner seat right now? Jenice, you got your hand up, so you go first.
Well, I hear there's some really good candidates in the running, and one of my sources told me that one of the candidates might be. This is not confirmed. This is just chit chat. Well, I won't say. He's already been a commissioner of a major.
It's alleged.
Well, it's like he said. I don't have it from an official source, but someone who's done some really good work as a police commissioner of a major municipal area, and it's not too far away. So I'm gonna just leave it at
Ramsey?
that. No, I loved Ramsey.
You ain't gonna tell me my ear?
You didn't like Ramsey? Oh, please.
I don't.
No, not Ramsey.
I don't like none of these pigs, but I hear you.
Try to get it for y'all.
I would just say
this guy's got
to fire Coulter. Let's start there. Fire who they currently have right now, because she's currently in the system. She's named in the lawsuit right now that everyone else is named in. Right. How are you supposed to be executing the law and then you wearing racist T-shirts and you're named in the lawsuit of discrimination? Like, that's too much dirty work.
Like
she got to go.
She has to go. We need a different commissioner.
I
maybe
think
the one that Jenice won't tell us who might be.
I'm thinking someone maybe outside the city.
Maybe, sure.
So number 2, really quickly again, what do you guys feel like could fix this heroin opioid epidemic? Really quickly.
City putting money in anti-poverty issues, because then it always stems to poverty, and this city keeps finding new ways to skip over the poverty issue. I feel like it is always coming back up. Everything is tied to poverty. Bad education, bad schools, poverty. Gentrification, poverty. Poverty. Unemployment, poverty. So the tax, poverty. Fix poverty.
We can't say that he's wrong. We are the most poverty-stricken city in the world. Well, not the world, but the city.
And not just
country.
Poverty. We have the largest pockets of deep poverty of any of the major big cities.
They broke is what she's trying to say.
Poverty, not just broke, but broker than broke.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then we were on the nepotism within government city jobs. I think we were talking about
term limits,
shorter terms.
Term limits.
And I think 4 years?
Yes, or 4 years, 8 years. And here's another thing: we got to get the electorate. The electorate often is so tuned out. I mean, every time we have an election, a small fraction of eligible voters actually come out and vote. I mean, people need to get engaged, find out who their council people are, and vote them out. Vote them out. They're not helping you. Just keep on.
Let me pour this tea.
Pour this tea, then.
Because this is what they say and this is what they do. And so whoever's watching this tonight, because you are watching it, because I shared on my account. I know you watching it.
Oh, I didn't share it.
Let me be very clear about this whole voter turnout stuff. It starts at the very beginning when the ballots, right? Who gets on the ballot? I see a lot of neighborhood people in my neighborhood. I've seen it in my area. I've seen it in other parts of Philly when I cover it, where I hear someone from the community, where the community puts someone up to run for office. Say, you know what? You're good. I like this young brother, this sister that's doing some great work. I want you to run for office. They begin to collect signatures to try to get on the ballot. Here come the machine, the Democratic Party, doing all kind of nonsense to knock them off the ballot. Throw lawyers at them to scare them, intimidate them, do all kind of things to get them off the ballot, right? So then once they done jeopardize the position, the moment that you look at the ballot, you say it's the same people. So you look at like, well, why does my vote matter if I'm going to go vote for the same person? It's the same people. And what people don't understand, and these Democrats don't understand, is that when you jeopardize the local voting ballot, what you're doing is you're turning people off from going to vote, period. So when there's votes for state rep seats and city council seats, there can also be DA seats, judge seats, presidential seats, and everything else. But because they're turned off from voting locally, they're not even voting nationally. And so we see that this is carried.
But here's the thing.
Here's the thing. We got to get better. We got to hold the party more accountable.
Make one more point because we got to move on.
That's been going on since before black people even got the vote. And I don't even see that kind of stuff changing. I mean, you got to go write your candidate and you got to get involved. You got to find out who's running for judge and vote for somebody. And don't stay home because you say, I don't like anybody. I'm not going to vote, because that's how Hillary Clinton got elected. You know, you got to make the better.
Didn't get elected.
No. Thank you. Well, technically she won.
That's how we ended up not with her.
But here's the thing: she won the popular vote.
That's right.
But she lost the electoral college.
That's another damn thing that need to change.
You know, it is everything you said was true.
Yeah.
But we can't let that stop us. We can't let this kind of stuff keep us from turning out and standing in lines at the polls and voting every single election. Not let it be a mid-year election and nobody comes out.
And hopefully the voting machines are good.
I'm gonna say my fix is a combination of the two of what they said. We got to stand behind some of the newer candidates, but then we also do got to get out and vote. Two more I want to run through if we can. I'm going to flip-flop these because if I don't get to the other one, it's okay. But gentrification is big in the city right now.
Yeah.
You have a lot of real estate going on, a lot of developments going on. You have a lot of people being priced out of the areas that they live in. This is another topic that I'm a little bit conflicted on. And I'll start the conversation off to tell you guys why, okay? I don't know that I necessarily believe in gentrification at its core for the hot button word that people automatically liken it to, which is black people being pushed out of their neighborhoods. I don't believe the word gentrification in that sense, and I'll tell you why. The amount that it costs to live somewhere directly affects what is going on in that neighborhood. So, if my rent is $800 and there's an abandoned park across the street and there's a liquor store next to the old church and there's a check cashing place down the block and two abandoned homes on my block and all of these things, as a landlord, $800 is the max that I can get for this property, right? But now we're gonna have town hall meetings and we're gonna have all these things and they're gonna say, well, they need to clean up the park. And I'm tired of the drug dealer standing in front of the Chinese store and I don't want it around here. And then they're gonna clean up the park and then they're gonna close down the Chinese store and then the landlord gonna say, well, shit, I might could get $1,000 for my property now. Now what's gonna happen is somebody else that can afford the $1,000 is gonna move into that home. And then they're gonna do some more renovations in the neighborhood and yada, yada, yada. And now people are gonna be pushed out. So I understand when people talk about it's systematic and everything else like that, but at a smaller level, you almost eat yourself from bettering your neighborhoods and your conditions and everything else like that, because at the end of the day, it comes down to $1. So it's like, do you want to be able to afford the 800? Or do you want a nicer neighborhood around you where now other people are going to say, hey, I'd live around here. And the landlord's going to say, well, what are you willing to pay?
No.
That's where I am.
No.
That's where I am.
I could not.
Talk to me.
Okay. No. First off.
Like and share the show and comment too. I don't care how y'all feel about gentrification. Tell me.
I'm just going to say this. That's not how it really happens. That's what we think happens. You know how you see that meme where it's like, this is what you think happened, this is what's happening, this is what's really happening, and yada, yada, yada. So that's what they want you to think. That's what you're supposed to think. But in reality, that's not actually what's happening. What actually happens is that if you look at how Philadelphia is rapidly changing, there's no 800 to 1,000. You're going from 800 to 2,400. There's no gradual climb. And there's no negotiation with community to discuss the changes. The issue with this is that, let's not call it gentrification, let's call it displacement. And displacement is an active measure. You could go to a neighborhood, right? I will tell you, living in West Philly, I've seen it, where they'll look at a piece of land that's minding its business, chilling, and somebody has a plan already. A developer has a plan. They're like, I'm gonna put these things here. I'm not worried about the landlord yet. I'm gonna put all these things here. We're gonna push these people out. We're gonna put these people in. We're gonna work with the nearby university, the nursing schools, everything else. And then we're going to then move everybody tomorrow. It's not a gradual process. No, there's no community conversation. If you look at what's going on in West Philadelphia, for example, to me, you gotta talk about 4601, that area, right? They don't actually ask community what they think about it. They don't actually talk to community about it because the plan is never to include community. So if you're actively choosing to displace people, it's not about the betterment of the community neighborhood because there's never a process. It's never a, let's put a couple of things here. It's like tomorrow we're going to have a garden and the next day we're going to have a tall Starbucks building. There's no middle. There's no middle.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but in actuality, there is a process. In actuality, you see when streets are being ripped up. You see when what used to be a reckless garden is now taped off and roped off and construction starts and begins and everything else like that. And quite honestly, during the construction phase, the property value decreases if you're building something big enough in that neighborhood. So there is a process that goes into place. The other side of it is, who's it incumbent upon to not be able to be displaced? Because we're talking about something totally different if you're saying that when this building goes up, black people can't live here no more. But what we're actually saying is when this building goes up, the rent's no longer $800, it's $2,400.
You know whose responsibility it is? Elected officials. It's called councilmatic prerogative, people.
See, I disagree.
Councilmatic prerogative. They choose what goes in the land, what developers come. They can be able to calm down and quill down some of that stuff. No one's saying that we can't have development, but the rate at which you're putting development, if you look at West Philly, Janie Blackwell was clearly not staying asleep at city council meetings enough to see all the changes that was happening in her neighborhood. And I've seen her fall asleep a couple of times, so I'm not even lying, okay? There are a lot of people that were coming there taking advantage of people and these old elected officials, signing papers, telling them about things. They don't know what the hell going on in their communities. And then these things go under them, mayor overgoes it, people put pressure, people are lobbying. And let me also say this. Community doesn't even have power. When you're looking at impoverished communities, how do they be able to fight to defend their community when it's all about money? You look at these developers, they go in putting tons of money in campaign. Kenyatta Johnson, look at who donates to his campaign. Developers. And that is how he's able to then prioritize him on his agenda.
But is that not the chicken before the egg, or the chicken or the egg? Can we blame Kenyatta for that?
No, we can actually, because at the end of the day, those were the people that elected you. The developers did not elect you, the community did. So you owe them responsibility first before you talk about money. If you want to make money, don't be a politician.
But you know historically,
that's a public servant. If you want to make money, be a lobbyist, be whatever. But don't mess up public service and elected seat for personal profit and gain. These politicians want to make money, and they also want to look like they're serving people.
So let me ask you a question that goes into the other thing we're talking about. When that person who we're talking about is not a part of the nepotism wins a seat in a part of Philly that's next up for development, are they just going to be like, oh no, I'm for the community, we don't want a skyscraper here, period? Or are they going to fall into that? Is it the chicken or the egg?
Okay, so
Point Breeze is a popular area now. So we can't just say that Kenyatta Johnson's responsible for letting these folks come in.
But as a community representative, you got to say, okay, we want development. Maybe you do want the development, suppose you want the high rent apartments. A certain percentage of the apartments should be set aside for lower income and moderate income and fixed income people. That's what elected officials can do. You don't just let developers come in and run rampant with your city.
But you know what they do
too?
You
look out for your people. You look out for the people who voted for you and who put you in the office. But a lot of, like Ernest pointed out, a lot of times people get in the office and they forget who put them there. And a lot of times it doesn't matter because people recognize their names and they vote for them anyway. They can go get dropped and people will still vote for them. People can be convicted felons on the ballot and still get elected. We've seen that happen.
Right, but
we've seen it. People,
but you know, the other thing.
That's why I say people got to wake up.
To your point about that is that when these lobbyists and these people come in, these developers come in with their white voters, they change the voting demographic. And then all of a sudden, white people start to run against them for seats that they have no business running for. And if Kenyatta's not careful, every time you notice he's getting developers challenging him. Ori ran against them. This Lauren Vitas woman ran against them. You're noticing that they're trying to turn those communities around for white people to then take those seats that were historically ran by black people. And that's going to happen in city council in the next 4 years.
But is that not contradictory to the point about the nepotism in city government? See, I don't believe that you're better for a community because you're white or you're black. I personally believe that Mayor Kenny is a better mayor than not John Street, who we used to have, Michael Nutter was.
I disagree.
I personally believe that.
Okay.
I've met him, I've worked with him, he's a good guy. I've met him, worked with Michael Nutter as
Kenny,
well.
You say Kenny?
With Kenny, yeah.
Kenny who just took the largest city contract, minority city contract away for $500. That Kenny who took the largest minority-owned contract in the city, that $17 million contract from U.S. Facilities, Kenny?
We can talk about those types of things,
right,
but we can't talk about those
types
of things.
Kenny ain't got no black people really in his cabinet?
And not say that there was nothing like that under Michael Nutter. To Jenice's point,
I'm not saying that.
His name was named in some sketchy stuff.
Yeah,
we won't get into.
But he didn't have Johnny Doc being his homie though.
Well,
who's indicted?
You got a point there.
Right.
There's a
Nutter
point
did
there.
have some issues with people with money, you know. I don't want to bring it all up.
But he ain't
right.
homies with the man who's indicted right now.
Yeah, and other people have been, wait a minute, I'm trying to think of what her name is who was charged.
No, we can't do that. We can't do that.
Oh, yes. You know who I'm talking about.
We can't do that.
She got charged for taking money from the city fund. The city fund.
No,
oh, come on.
We can't talk about that.
All right. It's a matter of public record. I'm not making this stuff up.
Back to this gentrification stuff.
I just cannot believe you think that Kitty is better than Nutter. I'm
not
stuck on
allowed
that.
to choose my politicians.
You're
I like Kenny better than Nutter.
A broken clock is right twice a day.
Well, I'm a broken clock then. Here's my question about gentrification. When is it incumbent upon us to learn the cycle, right? I understand that most of us are not here on the earth long enough to see Overbrook go from all white to all black. Okay. Right? I used to live in Overbrook when it was all white. Mm-hmm. I remember watching my white neighbors move out of Overbrook when I was young, right? Mm-hmm. It's all black now. We've learned this cycle by this point. It's going to be all white again one day when Overbrook is the hot place to go and move, right? North Philly was all black. Temple's there. Around Temple's campus is more and more white folks living. To your point, Point Breeze, it was a high-rise projects in Point Breeze. Right. They tore the projects down in South Philly by the stadiums and built a whole new development where mostly rich white people live. The homes are $400,000 to start, right? But that wasn't always so.
And they're nice too.
They are nice. They're real nice. I profiled them. They're nice.
I went over there.
But my point is, when is it incumbent upon not just black and brown people, but even poverty-stricken white folks? When is it incumbent upon us to learn the cycle and learn how to fight against the cycle? Because I'm gonna tell you, with me, I work to the point where if I want to live anywhere, I'm gonna be able to live where I want to live. And if I can't live where I want to live, it's because you discriminated against me. It's not because I can't afford it.
Oh, well,
it's not because I don't show up on paper.
Well, let's be clear. They are actively discriminating against people from being a part of it.
And that part I agree with.
They're doing it. Let me be clear. Zoning meetings, when you look at these zoning meetings, the way in which they try to exclude community people from zoning meetings, I know so many people. I know a woman named Tiffany that lives in Point Breeze who goes to zoning meetings and she's literally being cut out. It is a very active determination with money and politics and intimidation, and it's way bigger than that.
And redlining is real.
Yes, it is.
Black people can't get the same access to money to buy properties that
white
people do. And this is not something from the 60s or the 70s. This is still going on now.
And these things I know, so I'm more going into the fix.
Where you started saying about, like, what is your responsibility? And that's what I like about Tracy Gordon, who's going to be our next Register of Wills.
Right.
And she's big into, like, tangled deeds and helping people untangle their deeds before their properties get away from them. There's money that they can get and use to fix up some of these dilapidated properties, but they can't access it because they live in grandma's house. And grandma says she owns the house, but actually it's her brother has it because his name's on it and he's dead, and so it goes to his next of kin, so they can't get the money.
That's the point.
So she's helping people, she's talking about helping people work through these complicated deeds, because that's one of the key ways people's property is getting away from them. It's not necessarily gentrification all the time, it's because they don't even own it from the first place.
And that's the point. I think, like, don't get me messed up, I know that there are systematic placements of black people, we don't want you here. I know that exists. But what I'm saying is, if you look at life like a game, this is the same thing I say to my students when I speak to students, to just dumb things down for them, right? If you playing basketball, in order for you to get 3 points, you gotta be behind that line, right? Anything in front of that line is 2 points. In America, as a black person, in some situations as a black woman or as a black man, certain things, and to your point, as a gay black man, certain things are different for you, right? That 3 points, you might have to shoot from half court to get that same 3 points. Now, nobody's saying we don't know that that's fucked up. Why are they making Kyrie and Ernest and Jenice or whatever shoot from so far away to get the same point?
They make me shoot behind you guys.
Exactly. But my point is, when do we start perfecting our half-court shot? Because we already know in our lifetime, it ain't fair in our lifetime. It's just not fair. And I know that before I die, still gonna be racism, still gonna be gentrification, still gonna be sexism, classism, all of that is gonna happen in my lifetime, to me. So I'm more focused on, all right, all the white people or the Asian people or whoever it is, they getting 3 points for layups. I gotta work on how I beat the game and beat the system. When is it incumbent upon us?
I think that the incumbency on me is that when the way I look at it and how I operate is that I don't want to play that game. I'm trying to break that game so that the next generation don't have it. I think personally, that's just a difference of generational, is that our parents told us, oh, you have to play that game to get those things. But what we realized is that they've been still playing that game, and we ain't seen nothing change. So I would rather break the game altogether for everybody else, so that we all figure it out. Because so that the next generation, because we keep doing it like that, the next generation is going to learn how to be a player playing the same position.
What happens,
and I'm never going to play the whole position.
Because I'm gonna get at you for that. I'm gonna get at you for that, because you know you always posting on the socials.
Never
right?
Gonna play the whole position.
What you just said is what Jay-Z did. And you came at Jay-Z on Facebook for that.
No, Jay-Z got co-opted with the same type of movement structure.
But if you
to me, it's deviated from it.
You can't change the game without being a part of the game, Ernest.
Not true.
That's how not.
Not true.
If you're not in the meetings that tell people how to do a certain thing, you can't change that certain thing.
No, that's not true. Because I think the issue is that you have to understand what that dynamic is. And we don't know what that means. He could be in the, like, if you want to talk about Jay-Z.
He could be, but he couldn't be.
The reality is that who's benefiting?
Hey, here's the thing. We don't know. We don't know what deal Jay-Z has made.
We
have no idea.
We don't have to know. We don't have to know.
And you know what?
And that's the problem. Y'all really want to keep on.
We gotta know, Ernest.
I think he's showing us.
I wish there was some transparency on this issue. Because it does, from the outside, it doesn't look very good.
So that might be for part 2, but you know I had to get you about that, because we went back and forth all your time.
I know. Listen, all I'm saying is we gotta start telling people you don't gotta work within the system to beat the system. Sometimes when you throw enough stones outside,
create your own system
or redefine yourself, because then they're gonna get tainted. You learn how to play in the master's tool shed, and you think you're gonna beat the master, you're gonna become one of them.
I don't know if I trust Jay-Z to be that type of person.
Well, I think he's shown it with Barclays.
America? Yeah. Do I have time? Okay, we have one more segment to get through. I hope y'all enjoying the show. Please like, share, comment.
I'm getting mad.
Tell us what's going on. We can stay up here all day and talk about these things. Last one, sensitive ass America. So there's been news that
sensitive.
Scott Disick, who is, tell me who he is.
Courtney's ex-husband.
He's Kourtney Kardashian's ex-husband. And then we got Corey Gamble, who is Kris Jenner's boyfriend. Did I get that right? Okay. They've recently been public about their disagreement about spanking a child. So Corey says if a child hits him in the face or scratches him and the parent fails to discipline the child, he will pop that child to explain hitting is not an option. So he's gonna hit the child until the child ain't no hitting. But on the surface,
knock the child out,
the surface, and we running out of time. So real quick, are y'all for spanking or against spanking? I got kids, so I gotta watch how I go. You got kids too, right?
No.
You don't?
No, I don't have kids.
Oh, so y'all could just say pop the child and ain't nobody gonna come for y'all. I gotta
my son. So
I gotta
watch.
Look, spanking or not spanking? What you believe in?
Corporal punishment. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it requires. I think sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures. If it is a situation where there is some extreme physical violence in some situations, maybe. But I just think sometimes people just find a reason to hit a kid, and a lot of times it has nothing to do about the kid and why you hit him. And I think a lot of people make a kid a stress ball. I used to teach kids at West Philly High, and I also taught some kids after school when I was at Penn through middle schools. And I would just see kids that have situations where people just be yelling. I'm like, you're coming with a lot of your own frustration and maybe legitimate trauma and hurt, but you don't got to put it on the child.
Right.
Too often, when I think about people justifying spankings and whippings, it's never about really what the kid did, and there's other ways to get to that point, because what are you trying to really achieve? Fear. Do you want your kids to fear you where they won't talk to you? Because I know kids will get a lot of whippings, right? And then they fear their parents, and they go talking to somebody else. Some boy they're not supposed to be talking to, some gangster that they're not supposed to be hanging out with, some bad influence, and it's because there's a fear of communication and transparency and honesty.
Did you get whoopings as a child?
When I was really, really young, I got whoopings from like other family members, but my mom was very much adamant on having more conversations.
Okay.
Now, sometimes I did things where I knew I was like, you know what? Okay, a little pop.
Get me this time.
Most of the time I
Okay.
How you feel, Jenice? Spanking or not spanking?
I grew up in a house where my parents mostly did not spank us because my father, who was 6'6" tall, didn't believe it.
I bet he was. Longness.
And he was a physical education teacher, and he had been beaten a lot as a child. My mother used to always think it was some kind of legacy from slavery that black people felt they had to beat their children. And I'm not trying to say
white people beat their kids too now.
We were just talking about we just talked about what was going on in black households in our house. So they would take a swing at you upon occasion if they felt you deserve it. But But I remember the worst thing for me wasn't the time that I said a curse word in the car and my mother backhanded me while driving me home from school.
Right.
That wasn't the worst. The worst time was I was sitting at the dining room table and I hadn't done what I was supposed to do, and my father started talking about how disappointed they were in me. My parents did. And I felt like a heel. And when I think about it to this day, I still feel bad about it. Now, when she hit me in my mouth, I was mad.
Right.
You know what's funny?
But you get dragged a good time by your parent, but not physically, but through words.
Oh.
It will hit your psyche more, which is why they're telling people verbal abuse is a real thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
And this was not verbal abuse in my
kids.
case.
The same
They
thing
told me
about a punishment.
Yes,
she said her dad said, "I'm disappointed in you," and didn't talk to her for like a week.
Oh,
and
like
she
the
said that was the
silent
worst.
treatment.
She said that was worse than any whooping she could ever.
I've never had that, but I've had that feeling of knowing I've let these good people down. I let them down. I was a jerk, a jackass, as they.
So I got kids, so I gotta speak on spankings. All right, I'm kind of in the ballpark of you, right? I got spankings when I was young. I feel like I turned out okay. I don't believe in yelling at a child. I don't believe in anything that doesn't come with a lesson. Right? But I do believe that some behaviors are punishable by a spanking or a pop. Right?
Very rare.
But I just don't believe in, like you said, making a kid a stress. But I'm not just gonna hit my child for sake of hitting my child. If I hit my child, it's extreme. And it's not nothing abusive. It's just with a hand.
Because you threw something, you can't, you know.
Yeah, I'm not, and I'm a very even-keeled person. So for one of my kids to even get a pop out of me, it's like, you really took it there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's, no abuse. Don't abuse your kids.
Yeah, and I also think, like I said before, I think it's also just people not knowing how to respond in the other ways. When I see parents hit their kids, it's oftentimes because they don't know how to communicate frustration or anger. Because if they're hitting their kids, they're also hitting other people. I think there's no separation. They hit other people's hands are being thrown.
Go real quick, because we got to wrap up. We about to
hit their kids because they were hit. You know, break the cycle, break it.
Like hazing.
Some of these kids bad though, y'all. They just bad, man.
Put them in timeout.
Listen, man, I had a great time with y'all tonight, man. Ernest, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Jenice, always a pleasure. Listen, we got to spend some time down here at the Philly Inquirer building, right? So we're going to read our Inquirers. I still want y'all to comment, like, share the show. We're going to have to do a part 2 about this because, as y'all can see, Ernest got a lot to say. So we're going to do a part 2. But thank y'all for watching My New Philly, where something's always new and everything's always Philly.
Looking for a commercial or feature for your product, brand, or service? My New Philly can handle all of your content creation needs.